G'day my friends. I want to talk to you today about inflation and food production. And look, I'm an agricultural horticulturist, so I studied agribusiness at college and majored in horticulture and many other units. So I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to agricultural farms, sustainable practices, and the future of what farms hold. I study it all the time. I consistently watch the weather around the globe. I very rarely mention these things on my channel, but I feel that with current inflationary times and the big problems that we're going to have around the globe with food shortages, they're already saying that there's going to be massive starvation around the world, which really hurts my heart. It truly does. And inflation with interest rates going up and stuff, I think we're over 3.5%, maybe going into 4% here in Australia. And that hits the tipping point for many. It just raises the costs way too much, and so you've got to find other ways to bring income in or save money. And one way we can do that is by growing food at home, so we can actually keep our costs low. Now, in some ways, there's some good points to this. It means that people are going to reconnect more to the land and get off their mobile phones and different things as much. Well, maybe not as much, but everyone's going to be YouTubing like this, going, "Hey, how's Marty teaching us to grow this stuff now?" Things like that, But look, what's happened is we've got lots of things. So we need oil, and we also need natural gas to make fertilizers. So that's increasing the costs with everything that's going on around the globe with the war and everything. And so that's pushing everything way up high. We also got the cost of diesel coming up. So we need diesel to make these large crops and to keep these farms running. And we also need diesel to deliver everything around, right? And some crops, you believe it or not, actually are harvested, then sent all the way overseas in a boat, and then they're processed there and then sent all the way back in a boat again. It's just, man, globalization has really hit its tipping point now. And so we are in for a really hard time in many places. And I sort of been looking at this for quite a few years and been doing things behind the scenes that I don't really talk about on this channel. I'm not really a prepper, even though I do prepare for things. I've prepared for a couple of floods, and I was ready for them. Last one I was ready for down near Port Macquarie, and we had a week's supplies. I made a few things. I needed a few more batteries and another torch and maybe some extra candles and things like that, another light and stuff for when the electricity went out. But we did okay, Karen and I, and we got through and didn't go hungry from that time, because we couldn't drive out and we couldn't actually leave our place. The house wasn't underwater, but we were surrounded like a big moat. And so it's always in my back of my mind to prepare for these things, and people don't realize that because of all the shipping and distribution and storage and everything like that, we're actually like a year behind. You talk about everything going on now, a lot of this stuff is harvested and done and then processed and then gets out a year later onto the shelves. So we haven't really seen the full impact yet. And as products become more scarcer, prices will go up and things like that. So we really need to step back into old homesteading principles, such as things like raising chickens, growing our own sprouts, saving our own seeds, harvesting and storing, through the winter months, depending on where you live. I don't have to do that so much. I live in a fairly warm climate, so I can grow nearly all year round. But, and creating these security blankets for ourselves. So what's happening is, as I said before, we've got these costs of going up of, the chemicals that we need to use to process to make fertilizers. Unfortunately, we can't make enough organic fertilizer for the planet, and I know that these fertilizers are just ruining the planet. So in some ways it's a good thing, but we don't want people to starve, right? That's even worse. And they're pushing the prices up, and a lot of farmers actually aren't going out onto the field because, you know, their costs are just too high to go out and run this machinery and then throw out more chemical fertilizers and harvest and things because their margins are so low. And it's really pushing them to the edge where they're thinking, oh, is it really worthwhile doing all this extra work for minimal return? Maybe I'll just wait, kick it out for a year. Also, there's lots of droughts around the globe at the moment as well. And we've had like flooding and too much rain here in Australia, and it's knocked its head on a lot of crops. Now Australia, we're pretty bit luckier than some other countries, what's going on here, I must admit that. But it's going to affect the world globally, and I believe we could go into some type of global depression. You know, we are in many regards in a global recession, even though they won't admit it pretty much around, you know, on the news cycles and things like that. They'd rather push other agendas to promote other things and things like that. So what I want to do and encourage you to do, now I'm stumbling for my words a bit because I don't want to get it wrong here, but what I want to do is encourage you to work on becoming more self-sufficient in some way. Even if you're in a small space, like just start growing some herbs in pots and growing some microgreens and some sprouts and things like that. Create little vertical gardens off your verandas, in your windows, maybe in your backyards or spaces. Work out what grows well in the shade, what grows well in the sun, and what grows well in the seasons, and then just work with what works for you, and you'll start saving some money. You know, like just having those little inputs could make a big deal. You know, I mean, like you got some spaghetti that you've bought from the shop, you might have grown some cherry tomatoes, and you've got some basil and some parsley growing out there, a bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, you've got a meal there, you know what I mean? So just think along those lines, think simple, but also think the bigger picture, forward thinking, because in the next year to 2 years, things could get really gnarly. And I just don't want to see you sort of fall behind and not be future thinking about what's going on. Anyway, birds are letting me know that maybe there's a snake around. There's been a couple of big pythons around the last few days, and I've got to keep an eye on them for the chickens. Things are warming up and we don't want that happening, do we? So anyway, I didn't want to bring any doom and gloom to you, but just think about it. You know, you can watch and learn off this channel and see how I'm doing it. I'm about just over 3 months in now, and things are really moving forward, and I'm just going to teach you how I'm doing it. I'm an agricultural horticulturist, over 2 decades of experience, and you know, I've consulted for many farms and small plantations and different things like this. So yeah, I think I know what I'm talking about. Well, I don't think, I do know, and hopefully I can help you get through these hard times. All right, have a great day. Happy everything. We'll see you at the next video real soon. Bye for now.